Hey everybody, welcome back to Sports Gaming Rosters. Thanks for sticking with me. This is my last 2022 NFL mock draft. I did a few of these back in like January or so. I don't know if people are really interested in them, but hey, here's the last one. Draft is tomorrow. So yeah, let's just go ahead and do this thing and see what happens, all right? Thanks for joining me. Mock draft, I don't propose any trades. And I also go by what I think the teams are going to do, not necessarily what I would do. So with all that out of the way, let's get right into this. With the first pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Travon Walker, defensive end, Georgia. I don't agree with this, but everything seems to be pointing this direction right now. If you're going to just plop these guys in Madden and not worry about college production, yeah, Walker would probably go over Hutchinson. But I would go with Hutchinson, especially for a team that just needs everything they can get like the Jaguars. But it's looking like the combine and the measurables and the speed is going to win out over the college production. It's a pretty fascinating development. Travon Walker wasn't even thought of as a first-round pick a few months ago, and he shot all the way up to the top 3, and now it's looking like he's the favorite to be number 1. I would still go with Hutchinson. There's still a really small chance it'll be an offensive lineman, but everything's pointing to Travon Walker right here. This is one of those drafts where you don't have a true stud at the top of the board. You don't have skill position players. You're not going to be able to trade this pick down. So, I mean, swing for the fences, I guess. Go with Walker, who's got great upside. If he just ends up being average, well, everybody else in this draft might be average as well. It's just one of those drafts that happen every once in a while. So it's looking like Jacksonville's going with Travon Walker here. We'll see how it goes. I do not give them the benefit of the doubt because they're Jacksonville, but hey, what do I know? With the second pick, the Detroit Lions go with Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end from Michigan. They've paid a lot of attention to Kayvon Thibodeau throughout the past couple of months, but with Hutchinson available here, I don't think it's much of a no-brainer at all. The Michigan native, the Michigan legend, the best player in college football last year, the Detroit Lions, who always struggle to get talent and to get anybody to follow the team. It's just the perfect match. Defensive end / outside linebacker, pass rusher, whatever. It's not the biggest need, but Hutchinson's the best player available. He fills a need. He's a hard worker. He's a Michigan guy through and through, and it's pretty much a no-brainer. So, of course, Detroit will probably go somewhere else. With the third overall pick, the Houston Texans select Derek Stingley, Jr., cornerback from LSU. Looking at Stingley's 2021/2022 draft process will give you whiplash. He could have been the number 1 overall pick after his freshman year. 2 inconsistent injury-plagued seasons kind of dropped him in the 20s, and even some mock drafts foolishly knocked him out of the first round altogether. But his combine, well, not his combine, but his pro day has shot him back up into the top 10, and he's the odds-on favorite to be the first cornerback selected ahead of Sauce Gardner. Love it or hate that opinion, and that's the way it goes right now. Houston has a bunch of picks coming up. They are as desperate for star talent as any team in the league. This draft does not have many big-time talented guys. I would say Stingley and Thibodeau are the top 2 available right here. Pick your poison as far as Houston goes. I think Stingley's the guy. He's got the chance to be one of the very best cornerbacks in the NFL very quickly if he can stay healthy and commit himself. Good gamble for Houston right here in a draft that doesn't really have a lot of top-end talent. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes with Walker and Stingley, both in the top 3. With the fourth pick in the draft, the New York Jets select Sauce Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati. So the Jets have a few big needs: wide receiver, cornerback, offensive line, and probably defensive end. I think they're going to go wide receiver with their second pick. I think 4 is too high to pick a receiver. Plus, there's a lot of good receivers available with their next pick. With Derek Stingley shooting back up into the top 3, if they want a cornerback, they're going to have to select Sauce Gardner here, who I've had mocked to the Jets for quite a while. They have Bryce Hall and DJ Reed as their starters right now. It's a pretty good duo. Not bad. Young, 23 and 24 years old. But Reed only stands 5'9", and you probably need 3 good cornerbacks in today's NFL. So Gardner has great length, super productive, and most importantly, the class really falls off after Stingley and Gardner. So the Jets just suck it up, and they go cornerback here with a lot of options available with their next pick. With the fifth pick, the New York Giants select Ike Ekwonu, offensive tackle from North Carolina State. With the 5th and 7th pick, there is a 100% chance that New York is going to go with an offensive lineman with one of those picks. Whether it's Ekwonu, whether it's Evan Neal, Charles Cross, or even Trevor Penning, that's up to the Giants and up to the scouting, obviously. There are different prospects, but they're all lumped pretty much together, except for maybe Penning and Cross. So Ekwonu, his run blocking is second to none in this class. He could either be a very good offensive tackle or an elite offensive guard. Both huge positions for the Giants, who aren't going to think about this too much. They're just going to go with Ekwonu, throw him in whatever position they need him right now, and just let him go to work. With the 6th pick, the Carolina Panthers select Malik Willis, quarterback from Liberty. This is probably the pick that's going to throw my mock all out of whack. There's going to be teams trading up and down trying to get these quarterbacks. Will Willis go in the top 10? Maybe. Will it be Carolina? Maybe. Who knows? But all they have is Sam Darnold. They don't have a 2nd and 3rd round pick. Do you really think that Baker Mayfield is the answer, or Jimmy Garoppolo or something like that? Absolutely not. You've got to just take the quarterback here. I like Willis. Is he the most accurate? No. I mean, his running is top notch. He could be what Cam Newton was. Obviously not as big and not as strong, but a nice dual threat. A poor man's Lamar Jackson. I don't know. Who knows if he'll even pan out? But he's got the drive, the determination. He's got the arm strength. And most importantly, he is not Sam Darnold. Carolina needs something behind center. Yeah, it's going to be tough to pass on Evan Neal right here, but just get the quarterback and hope it works out for the best. With the 7th pick, the New York Giants go with Kayvon Thibodeaux, defensive end from Oregon. So it's a pretty easy draft to figure out for the Giants. Draft a pass rusher, draft an offensive lineman, fill your 2 biggest needs. I think Thibodeaux could go as high as number 2 to the Lions, so to have him here is a pretty good value right here. They've had some rumblings about his desire and his off-the-field work ethic, blah, 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 blah. His talent is top 3 in this class, and with 2 picks in the top 7, and with the other pass rushers off the board, this is pretty much a no-brainer pick here. I think Thibodeaux will be just fine in the NFL. I worry more about his strength holding up against the run than I worry about any so-called desire drawbacks. But the Giants, who really have struggled to get after the quarterback for years, this would be a great fit for them. With the 8th pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Jameson Williams, wide receiver from Alabama. So Atlanta's decided to completely bottom out talent-wise and restart from scratch. Marcus Mariota was brought on to help lead them to 2 or 3 wins. I don't see them drafting a quarterback in the first round at all. They're going to be one of the main players for the Bryce Youngs and CJ Strouds of 2023. So build up the rest of the roster the best you can. Jameson Williams, the speediest receiver in this class, and if you look at the guys who got paid this offseason, it's all about speed. I'm not worried about his injury. Jalen Waddle had an injury similar, and he came back just fine. Teams aren't really worried about that kind of stuff, especially for a tanking squad like the Falcons, who have absolutely nothing at receiver. So draft the speediest guy who was a top 10 pick prior to the injury. Let him recover, lose a bunch of games, and go on from there. With the 9th pick, the Seattle Seahawks select Evan Neal, offensive tackle, Alabama. Neal is the dark horse to go first overall, so if he falls all the way to 9, this is obviously a huge get for Seattle, literally and figuratively, with the 6'7", 350-pound beast known as Neal. Offensive line has been a gigantic hole for years in Seattle, and now so is every other position on the roster. But a guy's going to fall, I think, especially if a quarterback manages to squeak into the first round, or the top 10, I should say. I think Neal or Kayvon Thibodeaux could be one of those guys who fall a little bit and are available here, and Seattle would swoop in and pick one of those guys in an instant, and that's Neal right here. With the 10th pick, the New York Jets select Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State. So like I said earlier, this pick is most definitely going to be a receiver, 95% sure. The Jets have been in on every receiver available on the trade market. Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, probably others, probably DK Metcalf. They're probably bugging the crap out of the Seahawks for him. I like Garrett Wilson. I think he's my favorite receiver in this class. He doesn't have the size of Drake London. He doesn't have the speed of Jameson Williams, but he's got good hands, a decent route runner, very productive. lots of experience, a very high former recruit. Small, but tougher than you would think. I think he's definitely got the chance to be a solid wide receiver one in the NFL, something that the Jets have needed seemingly for as long as I can remember. If you want if you want Zach Wilson to succeed, get his brother from another mother, Garrett. That's a good start. With the 11th pick, the Washington, Daniel Snyder's parting gift to the fan base that has suffered for so long is giving them the name Commanders. Select Drake London, wide receiver from USC. Kyle Hamilton is definitely an option here, but I think if the Commanders want Carson Wentz to be their long-term option, parentheses, LOL, parentheses, they're going to need to give him more than just Terry McLaurin to throw to. London has a great catch radius. He was putting up unheard numbers for the Trojans before he got hurt. His game was never really predicated on speed, so I don't think the injury will impact him all that much long-term. He's a guy kind of like a Mike Evans, just big, huge catch radius, big hands, throw it up there and let him get it and come down with it. So, Kyle Hamilton and a couple other guys could help the defense out even more, but the offense just needs more help, and I think London's a good fit. With the 12th pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Trent McDuffie, cornerback from Washington. I think pass rush, I think receiver are a couple other needs, but obviously none is bigger than cornerback. They've drafted a lot of first rounders in recent years, and most of them aren't even on the team anymore. You got to keep trying, though, especially with this class falling off a bit after McDuffie. I think production-wise, he's up there with the best cornerbacks in this class. He's a little shorter than teams would like, but he's a heck of a player, and I think he's got all the traits to be a cornerback one in this league. The Vikings shouldn't overthink this. Just go with McDuffie and hope that this time you drafted a winner. With the 13th pick, the Houston Texans select Kyle Hamilton, safety from Notre Dame. I think Hamilton's still a top 5 talent in this class. Yeah, he didn't run as fast as teams would like, but he's 6'4", 220. He's a linebacker playing safety. I mean, what do you expect? He's not going to run a 4.3. So I don't think he'll go in the top 5 or probably not even the top 10 just because of the position he plays and the importance of pass rushers, offensive linemen, and receivers. But the Texans are totally fine with that. It might not be the best use of resources to draft 2 secondary prospects with your 2 first-round picks, but it's not like Houston just needs to get the 53 most talented players on the roster that they can. So Stingley, Hamilton, man, if those 2 guys pan out the way that you think they would, they could really give the Texans a strong secondary and 2 future Pro Bowl type players. With the 14th pick, the Baltimore Ravens select Jermaine Johnson, the second defensive end from Florida State. Jordan Davis is a popular mock pick here, but Calais Campbell resigned, so I think they'll go a different direction. Johnson, great pass rusher, could go as high as the top 5, though I think the other guys are clearly ahead of him in the pecking order right now. This is a good value pick for Baltimore, who always seems to need to replace pass rushers who have departed via free agency. There's a spot for Johnson here. Can keep the line moving in Baltimore. With the 15th pick, Philadelphia Eagles select Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State. So, yeah, the Eagles' draft decisions at receiver have been well publicized with Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf. You can pretty much nitpick bad draft decisions for any team, but that's still brutal, which means receiver's still a huge need. Philadelphia has 2 picks, and I expect them to use one on a receiver if one's available. The top 3 are gone. Olave is not quite in the class of those 3, but he's got a lot of experience and a good route runner. I think he'd be a nice compliment to Devontae Smith. Both are slender, but both are quick. Eagles just need talent at receiver, so is it the best fit? Who knows, but he's better than anybody else on the roster other than Smith, so big need here. With the 16th pick, the New Orleans Saints select Kenny Pickett, quarterback, Pittsburgh. The Saints picked up a second first-round pick, and I don't see why they would do that if they were not planning on drafting a quarterback. They have no money to spend. Jameis Winston is obviously not the long-term answer. Taysom Hill has already been moved to tight end, making him a very expensive tight end and a very experienced tight end. So I think a quarterback here would definitely be the way to go. Hopefully they can develop him, and then they have a guy for 5 years not making $30 million a year while they clean up the rest of their cap. So is it Pickett? Is it Malik Willis if he's still here? Desmond Ridder? Maybe Matt Corral? Who knows? Pickett with his Jack Kelly from Always Sunny in Philadelphia size hands. I think he's still a first-round pick, even though he's already 23. He's maybe a bit of a one-year wonder, but he can be a mid-tier starter, and he can be good enough surrounded by a running game and a solid defense like the Saints have to get them back in the playoffs. With the 17th pick, the Los Angeles Chargers select Charles Cross, offensive tackle, Mississippi State. Pretty much the easiest pick to make here. The Chargers had a killer offseason and addressed most of their needs, but they definitely need to continue to build that offensive line. Rashawn Slater was a home run of a draft pick last year, so Charles Cross, who a lot of people have in the top 10, just managed to slip a little bit for no real reason. No fault of his own, but the Chargers will swoop right in and pick him up here. There's a little worry about him coming from a Mike Leach style offense that hasn't been kind to NFL draft picks in the past, but he was a top recruit, and I think he would have been a good tackle no matter what system he played in. But pick 16 here, 17, across from an All-Pro already in Slater. This is a pretty easy choice for the Chargers. With the 18th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Boye Mafe, defensive end, Minnesota. Linebacker is a popular mock pick here for the Eagles, but they've already signed Kaiser White and Hassan Reddick in free agency, and teams don't really have 3 linebackers on the field very often anymore, so I don't think that's a position they'll go in the first round. Defensive end is a definite need. They re-signed Derek Barnett, who's not really much of a pass rusher. Brandon Graham still hanging around. Josh Sweat's okay. Mafe, he's a bit of a workout warrior, but he was a good player for Minnesota for 4 years. They weren't a great team, but he was a great player. I think he's a definite late first round pick with a chance to move up, because pass rushing is always important and teams are always looking for it. So this may be a slight reach, but it's pick 18. If they reach 10 spots or so, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen that, and it definitely fills a big need in Philadelphia. With the 19th pick, the New Orleans Saints select Jordan Davis, defensive tackle from Georgia. Defensive line isn't the biggest need for the Saints, but they've always invested heavily in that position. And with 2 first-round picks and the workout monster Jordan Davis still available, I think it's a direction they could go. Shy Tuttle had a good season, but he's probably more of a third rotational type defensive tackle. So to put Davis with the other guys along the defensive line would definitely turn that position into a big-time strength. I can't put Davis in the top 10 or 15 because he is kind of a one-dimensional run defender, though he's a better pass rusher than people give him credit for. But for downs 1 and down 2, put him in there and he'll definitely wreak havoc. With the 20th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Desmond Ridder, quarterback from Cincinnati. So unlike the other teams that have definite holes at quarterback, the Steelers don't expect to be picking in the top 10 in 2023 or really anytime. So I think they're one of the teams that will go quarterback in the first round, whether it's a trade up or trade down or right here. So Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral, maybe even a Sam Howell if they are really wanting to throw a curveball. Right here, I like Ridder much more than Matt Corral. Ridder's obviously not the athlete Corral is, but he's a gamer. He's much more poised, much more experienced, a good arm, won a lot in college, and I think he's good enough to keep the line moving. You know, Ben Roethlisberger did the same thing in the past decade for the Steelers, and I think Ridder is experienced enough to beat out Mitchell Trubisky pretty quickly and be pretty good for the Steelers. With the 21st pick, the New England Patriots select Devin Lloyd, middle linebacker, Utah. New England's defense has always been at its best when it's had a stud middle linebacker like a Gerard Mayo, Dante Hightower. The linebacker group has suffered a bit with age and free agency and all that stuff. I really like Lloyd. Obviously, he was one of the most productive players in college football last year, regardless of position. He didn't quite run a blazing 40, but that wasn't to be expected. His game is more predicated on power and smarts than just flat-out ability. But coverage, interceptions, getting after the ball carrier, getting into the backfield, there's a lot he can do, and I think he'd be a great fit as a leader for that New England defense. With the 22nd pick, the Green Bay Packers select Trevor Penning, offensive tackle, Northern Iowa. Yeah, receiver is a need, but it's not the only need for the Packers, so I think pigeonholing a receiver here would not be the best idea, especially with 4 already off the board. Everybody knows the Aaron Rodgers face on the ground, helmet over his eyes, looking in complete bewilderment meme, which means offensive line is a big-time need as well. Their 2 best linemen can't really stay on the field anymore, and there's a lot of holes otherwise. Trevor Penning's getting a little bit of top 10 love. I don't think he's quite that good, but he's good value here, and I think he can step in and be a starter pretty quickly. A very big need for the Packers. It's more than just receiver for Green Bay. With the 23rd pick, the Arizona Cardinals select cornerback Kare Elam from Florida. So it was considered a disappointing season for the Cardinals, especially with the start they got off to, but the fact of the matter is this is still a team that has a lot of holes roster-wise, especially all over the defense. Pretty much every position could use an upgrade. None more so than cornerback, which hasn't been the same since Patrick Peterson's exit from the team. Kare Elam, I think he did as good as he possibly could for a sinking ship known as the Florida Gators. He might not be the top 10 pick I thought he was coming into the season, but he's still a solid first-rounder who I think at the least could be a good cornerback too. Good size, good press. With the 24th pick, the Dallas Cowboys select Tyler Linderbaum, center, Iowa. Linderbaum, pound for pound, is probably one of the 10 best players in this class, but he's a bit undersized, and he plays a position that's not that premium draft-wise, so Dallas gets him in the latter half of the first round, and they'll be totally fine with that. They still have 2 of the better offensive linemen in the NFL, but the rest of the unit has kind of fallen off in recent years, mostly because free agency and just age. It happens. Linderbaum, I think, would be an upgrade over Connor McGovern or Tyler Bidas, guard or center, respectively. They want to run the ball. They want to control the clock, and keeping that offensive line elite is the biggest way to do that. With the 25th pick, the Buffalo Bills select Andrew Booth, cornerback from Clemson. With Tre'Davious White coming back from a serious injury and Levi Wallace departing as a free agent, cornerback is probably one of the few real needs on the Buffalo roster, especially draft-wise. Andrew Booth, I think, is as talented as any cornerback in this class, well, other than Derek Stingley. What he lacks most is just experience. He hasn't played all that much. He's still very young. I think last year was only his first year as a full-time starter. But he's got the size. He's a good tackler. He's a smart player, very athletic, high pedigree, and I think he could wind up being a good starter in the NFL. With the 26th pick, the Tennessee Titans select Zion Johnson, offensive guard from Boston College. The Titans' offensive line is just okay. They currently have a former undrafted rookie starting at left guard, and if you want to try to ride Derrick Henry until the wheels fall off, you're going to want to open holes for him. Johnson has worked his way up into a definite first-round prospect. He had a good combine. He's had a good career at Boston College, and he's just your classic plug-and-play offensive guard. Put him in the starting lineup, and don't worry about the position for a few years. With the 27th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select George Karlaftis, defensive end, Purdue. Karlaftis, good pass rusher, very strong, got a definite mean streak, a good run stopper. I think he's the type of guy who you can bulk up a little bit and play end for a 3-4 defense like Tampa Bay. They are getting old along the line. They're getting old everywhere, but especially along the defensive line. Karlaftis, good pass rusher, good run defender. I think could be a very good rotational piece for a Tampa Bay team that's just going to go for it as long as Tom Brady will let them. With the 28th pick, the Green Bay Packers select Treylon Burks, wide receiver, Arkansas. I think Burks is the type of guy who falls into the second round on most years. He's very talented, big guy, but his lack of top-end speed could really harm him at the next level. We've seen guys like Keenan Allen and A.J. Brown fall to the second round for similar reasons. But this year, with the Packers and the Chiefs both trading away their alpha receiver and having 2 first-round picks, I don't see any way he falls past those two teams twice. Packers went offensive lineman the first pick, and they pick up the big, huge target Burks here. With the 29th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select Jahan Dotson, wide receiver, Penn State. So obviously, one of these two picks is going to be a receiver unless 10 of them go off the board and there's just absolutely nobody left. Jahan Dotson, he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest. Scouts have called him ordinary, but he's productive, and he ran a pretty good 40-yard dash at the combine and had better numbers than anticipated, which I think punches his ticket to at least the middle of the second round. And like I said, with so many teams trading their receivers and so many teams needing a new receiver, I think he's one of the guys who could squeak in at the very end of the first round. Obviously won't replace Tyreek Hill, but along with Valdez-Scantling and a couple others, could help pick up some of the slack that they lost when they had to trade him. With the 30th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select Logan Hall, defensive end from Houston. Houston Cougar Peyton Turner was a first-round pick last year, and I think Hall is a better prospect. I could definitely see him squeaking into the end of the first round as one of those sleeper guys. Big guy, great strength, could probably play some defensive tackle as well. The Chiefs are probably going to move on from Frank Clark, who's really fallen off a cliff the past few years, and they don't really have a lot along the defensive line. I think Hall could help at either end or tackle as a really solid rotation piece. With the 31st pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Nakobe Dean, middle linebacker from Georgia. So I guess making the Super Bowl would cause even the cheapest of ownership to open up their paychecks a little bit during free agency. Cincinnati really attacked the offensive line, signing several players, and now it's not the biggest need on the team anymore. They can still go that position, but it really opens up a bunch of different directions for this pick here. I like Nakobe Dean as a prospect a lot. He's definitely undersized, but that's not as big of a deal. In today's NFL, where it's all about speed, he can definitely keep up with ball carriers and even most of the receivers. He would be a true difference maker for a linebacking group that's been average in Cincinnati for quite a long time. With the 32nd pick, the Detroit Lions select Dax Hill, safety from Michigan. So safety is not the biggest position of need on the Lions defense, but this is just a team that needs talent and needs to go best player available, and I think that's Hill right now. He could play safety, he could play some cornerback. He's just a solid playmaker, and secondary is a definite need for the Lions. I think this pick could be like a Matt Corral. Some team will probably trade up here to select him and get that 5th-year option on the contract. I know you've heard about that if you follow drafts at all. But I don't see Detroit really going for a quarterback. They need to build the rest of the team up, and I think they'll be in position to get one of the big name guys next year. So trading down would be a good spot here. If not, Hill's a nice get for a team that has a lot of holes in the secondary. And that wraps up the 2022 NFL Mock Draft, Round 1. I want to thank everybody who stuck through to the end. If you're listening to this right now, especially, I know I try to keep this thing as short as I can. I do a lot of rambling. There's 32 picks. I try to give each pick its love and talk a little bit about it. But to keep the video under 30 minutes, under 40 minutes, I know it can get long. If you're here, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the love. Thanks for all the support. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel. What you're looking at on the screen right now is the Offseason Roster. It's the top downloaded roster on the share right now, which is really awesome. I'm really humbled. Thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead as soon as the first round is done Thursday night. I'm going to add those first round guys to the roster and upload it right away. So please stay tuned for that. I'll make a video talking about the first round and the guys in their new uniforms and what I think about each pick. So stay tuned for that. If you don't feel like getting analysis from the other 7,500 analysts out there, I'll be 7,501. I'll be fine with that. But anyways, guys, thanks so much. Thanks for the support. I look forward to talking about the 2023 draft coming up. And stay tuned for more Madden stuff. Thanks, guys.